Giratina bears the title of the Renegade Pokemon due to its violent, destructive nature, causing it to be banished to the Distortion World by Arceus. Or that's what the two want you to think. The real reason Arceus created Giratina was hidden from us for a reason. So, let's start by debunking its supposed powers. Giratina doesn't control antimatter, nor does it control gravity. I think it's something completely different. Because, here's the thing, real antimatter doesn't work like that at all. If 1 gram of antimatter were to come in contact with a gram of matter, it would release the same amount of energy as that of a small nuclear explosion. And well, Giratina certainly isn't known for blowing everything up, especially to that degree of destruction. What about the theory that Giratina controls gravity? Well, if it really did control it, like how Dialga and Palkia govern time and space, you'd expect a signature move or a Pokédex line to confirm it, but none exist. Instead, its moves revolve around stealth and phasing through dimensions, not bending gravity wells like a black hole. Giratina controlling gravity also doesn't really explain its ghost typing. Palkia's water typing, on the other hand, makes sense, because water adapts to all recipients. It symbolizes the space's ever-changing forms. Dialga's steel typing is also very easily explained, because steel is stable and unchanging, just like the nature of time. So if it's not an antimatter nuke, or a cosmic gravity well, that leaves something else entirely. As we know, Dialga's and Palkia's respective signature moves are known as Roar of Time and Spatial Rend, with each literally telling you what they control. But Giratina's, well, it's known as Shadow Force, not something like Antimatter Annihilation, even though that would be pretty cool. Thus, it would actually make a lot of sense that Arceus gave Giratina control over the shadows, not antimatter. It would also finally allow for Giratina to fit in alongside the other two creation dragons, as Dialga and Palkia never really follow this black and white morality we humans are used to. Instead, they like to follow this weird blue and orange motive, where they're still opposites of one another, sure, but you can't really figure out who's in the right and who's in the wrong. With Giratina being able to control shadows, it allows it to become the opposite of Arceus, its mirror. Think about the Distortion World. It's not chaotic for the sake of chaos. Gravity flips, floors become walls, time doesn't flow normally. It's not broken, it's perfectly contrary to our own world. This isn't just poetic. The Hisuian Pokédex even says there's an old verse about a powerful light creating a deep shadow. The powerful light? Arceus. That shadow? Giratina. So maybe Giratina doesn't actually destroy reality, it reflects it, holding it in balance alongside Arceus. Having said all that, what about the various accounts that detail Giratina's destructive tendencies? In the games, it's always said that Giratina was banished for being violent. I mean, even Arceus themselves calls Giratina the banished Pokemon, and the clear definition of banishment is being sent away as punishment. However, if you look closer, this story also starts to fall apart. If Giratina was really banished, then how can it travel back and forth between the worlds so easily? And why do the games also mention Giratina actually being gifted the Distortion World, not being imprisoned there? Here, look at the inscriptions of the Spooky Plate in Legends of Arceus. It states that Arceus gave the Raging Third, otherwise known as Giratina, the other side of the world, or, well, the Distortion World. The Iron Plate also mentions that which fills the other side of the world can shape the rage and mold it. So, obviously, Giratina is also very much in control of his emotions, not a mindless beast. Even Cynthia, the champion who Pavloved an entire generation, hints at this in Pokemon Masters EX. Before I read her dialogue though, here's a quick note on the validity of this game's events. There was an interview done with Pokemess's producer Yu Sasaki, who worked with the Pokemon Company to ensure that the actions and words the characters say in the EX games do not deviate from what they would do in the games. So this is still very much lore accurate. Anyway, here is what she says. There are few existing theories as to why Giratina was in a world like that. According to one, Giratina was banished to another world for its violence. However, as I kept examining myths and reference materials from different angles, I started to uncover the truth. I think Giratina is actually a kind soul, watching over our world from the shadows to protect us. Since gods also don't have a good track record of being truthful, it might be the case that Arceus didn't create Giratina, and instead, they were created at the same time. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, and while you're doing that, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you've enjoyed it so far. So why is Giratina labeled as the banished Pokemon if it isn't actually as destructive as it's first made out to be? That can actually be explained by humanity's constant need to put a moral label on everything and everyone. We humans love to label everything as good or bad, but those lines shift all the time depending on what the society currently values. So it's a human construct, not something a god would even reference or care for. We don't want to think about the fact that maybe our world needs something that lives in the dark, so that's exactly what Giratina uses to its advantage, staying hidden in the shadows so it can keep balance without anyone meddling. But Giratina being viewed in a negative light has to have come from somewhere, and I think it's from this old story. Within Canalith City's library, there's a myth, specifically the Veilstone myth, and I'd like you to look at it. In short, it says that a young, foolish man found a sword and killed Pokemon without thinking. When all the Pokemon disappeared, he searched far and wide, but then he found one very much unlike the others. This Pokemon told him, "If you bring harm, we will take our toll to protect ourselves." Seeing his mistake, the young man snapped the sword and begged for forgiveness. The Pokemon then vanished to a place beyond seeing. Turnback Cave, the place where Giratina resides, is right near Veilstone City, with the myth basically saying that Giratina taught humans a lesson about balance, before returning to a place beyond seeing, obviously referencing the Distortion World. As a fun side note, this myth also explains why we don't use weapons to battle others, instead opting to use Pokemon to settle our disputes. Either way, that's only one of the many examples for Giratina working towards restoring the world's order. Because in Pokemon Platinum, Cyrus chains Dialga and Palkia and also subdues the Lake Trio, to which Giratina responds to by dragging his ass to the Distortion World. There, it doesn't actually destroy him, it only pulled Cyrus away before he could misuse Dialga's and Palkia's powers. Then there's Volo in Legends Arceus. Volo grew up longing for the power and answers coming from his heritage, and when he finds Giratina in Turnback Cave, he sees it as an avatar of destruction he can use to force an audience with Arceus. But that's Volo's projection. Giratina was always a guardian. It just played the villain to test him, to test the player, and to maintain balance. After Volo's defeat, Giratina doesn't gloat or punish him. Instead, it shows Volo that he was wrong. The so-called Renegade Pokemon was never a destroyer, but a silent protector, and Volo's own darkness blinded him to that truth. I also don't think that Giratina actually cared whether Volo succeeded or failed in the way a human might. It only cares about maintaining balance, not about good or evil, right or wrong, or anything of those similar lines. If Volo had truly upset the world's balance, Giratina would have intervened, just as it did with Cyrus. It acts when the scales tip too far, not because it wants to rule or destroy anything. But that's just my idea. If you have a suggestion for a different type of theory, or even a different game entirely that you want me to do a theory on, let me know.